Two and a Half Men didn't have an ending. It had a slow death. And like most sitcoms that die, there wasn't just one thing that killed it. Back in 2003, Chuck Lorre and Lee Aronson created what would become one of the biggest sitcoms of the entire decade. The sitcom followed Charlie, a wealthy dreamer writer living in this huge house in Malibu. Ruining his paradise is his brother, who, fresh off a divorce, comes and lives with him because he has no place to stay. And right in the middle is Jake, Ellen's son. He only stays with them on weekends, but this lovable group somehow becomes exactly holding these two completely opposite brothers together. Shout out Amos T. Jones, man.
Take these and get started on the kitchen floor.
Why? I didn't pee in here. Okay, once, but it was in the sink.
Initially, this show wasn't supposed to work, but Charlie's chill, confident guy persona, Alan's insecurity and quirkiness, and Jake's innocent stupidity somehow created one of the craziest and funniest sitcom dynamics TV has seen in years. So yes, it blew up. People kept tuning in every week, the numbers went up, and it was beginning to prove that Chuck Lorre was one of the best sitcom creators. This guy created Grace Under Fire, Seinfeld, Dahmer and Gray, and for you Gen Z's, The Big Bang Theory, and Young Sheldon. With every season that went on, he found his place among the TV schedules and even amongst the favorites. That's exactly why listening to the show felt so personal both to the public and to myself. These characters started to feel like a real family. It became more than just another TV show, it became a weekly routine. The exact kind of comfort show you'd automatically put on whilst the family sits down for dinner, except sometimes you want to eat and get out of there. The crew didn't think it would become successful, or let's say that much successful. During the network ratings wars, CBS strategically placed the show at 9:30 p.m. on Mondays, right after the massive hit Everybody Hates Raymond. With that much exposure, they had to fight to retain those audiences. But even with the critics slamming it the first season for its edgy jokes, and despite the endless headlines about Charlie Sheen's real-life lifestyle, nothing could stop it from defeating reality TV giants like Fear Factor, The Bachelorette, and other massive shows. Charlie Sheen became one of the highest-paid actors, earning, $1.8 million per episode. Goodness. CBS felt like they were winning. Everyone felt like they were winning. Chuck was seen as a creator of another hit series, but that's how it all seemed from people from the outside. Because whilst millions were tuning in and laughing, there was something that was happening inside. The more I researched into this story and I looked at what really happened, it was hard to judge one person or one thing. Whether it was Charlie, Chuck, the network, Charlie's addiction, money, pressure, every answer I got explained this part of the story but never fully. So let's start with the face of all of this, Charlie Sheen. Looking at his past meltdown, you could easily make an assumption that this is where things started to fall apart. Because we had a version given to us which was that, because without that version we wouldn't have answers. If you go to YouTube right now and search Charlie Sheen faces Chuck Lorre, you'll see videos of Charlie throwing shade at Chuck Lorre. But finish this video first. Anyways, moving on. Before his meltdowns, there were already cracks showing, cracks you can easily see in his interviews and his last season on the show. His co-star John Cryer stated in his memoir, by the final season, Charlie's physical appearance had completely changed. He looked gaunt, pale, and incredibly thin. Even worse, the man who used to memorize an entire script in one sitting could no longer remember his lines. Rehearsals that used to take an hour began dragging on for half the day, with the crew standing around in uncomfortable silence while the Hollywood giant crumbled in front of them. Charlie wasn't an ordinary sitcom actor. By the time he was on his first season on the show, we had known Hollywood for over 2 decades. Going back, he was in a ton of major movie hits in the 80s and 90s. But most notably was him transitioning into television, and not just transitioning, but replacing him up with Jay Fox in the ABC sitcom Spin City, and he went on to win a Golden Globe for Best Actor. He proved to the movie industry that he was one of the very few massive movie stars that could step in and establish sitcom and save it or make it better. People viewed Charlie as funny, charismatic, wild, the kind of actor that lived the life Charlie Harper was written to have. And that's how it was supposed to look. Chuck Lorre stated in the Paley Center interview that he had written the Charlie Harper character with Charlie Sheen in mind, which blurred the line, looking also at the fact that both the actor and character have the same name and personality. That would become the show's strength and weakness. The years went by, and the show continued working as well, and its rating was still up. The cast worked well together, especially Angus C. Jones, Charlie, and Joe Cry. I always find it ironic that some producers say he never worked with kids or animals, but Angus C. Jones became one of the big pieces of the show, mostly as a kid in the show. Everything stayed as good as it was from the start. CBS had one of the biggest sitcoms in America, and Chuck Lorre had one of his biggest hits in his hands, and even with that, he was working on his other big sitcom, The Big Bang Theory, while 2.5 Men was still running. With all that was going on with the sitcom, its audience and ratings, the question becomes what exactly was falling apart. Success had a strange way of hiding the show's problems. No one saw that other things weren't working. Basically, other stuff were overlooked, problems got overlooked. Back in the 2000s, with how big 2.5 Men was, every season had to deliver, every episode had to perform, and millions of people had to tune in and watch Sheen come on and make them laugh, which can be exhausting to most actors and eventually did become exhausting for Charlie. In later interviews, Charlie admitted something that kind of bothered me at the time. He said he felt the show wasn't a challenge anymore, and after nearly 8 years, he felt like he was doing the same thing over and over again. Basically, was saying he had enough, which becomes understandable to some people now, even myself, because any actor could want something new. But then
it starts to take shape, and it feels like a play, and I never did theater. It was kind of like a trip. It was like I was doing this play every week, and it was on television, but it also had kind of a sports vibe because Friday night felt like game night, that's something I could get up for.
Yeah, around 3. That's a lot. $2 million an episode is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
You had to be pretty excited about that.
Oh, I was, yes. Yes, super grateful, like cool. It felt like a lotto win,
Yeah.
But it didn't, I knew it was still gonna come at the same cost of what wasn't gonna be different.
Yeah.
Because it didn't change 4 people, 5 rooms, 6 jokes,
what's really mind-boggling the most is that these two powerhouses weren't always enemies. In fact, while 2.5 Men was still dominating television, Charlie Sheen actually made a guest appearance in Chuck Lorre's brand new sitcom, which was already in its 2nd season. Gen Zs, you know it, you love it, The Big Bang Theory. That's important to this story because it easily sees something people easily forget, and that is the relationship didn't start with hatred, it slowly became one. I looked into Charlie's interviews some more, and it was hard to understand Charlie, or even judge. One moment he sounded like the most confident man in Hollywood, which some may say he sounds arrogant.
I'm by winning.
The next, he sounded exhausted, then angry, then reflective. Sometimes I would look at his face and not listen to his words and see a broken man. He was arrogant, but he was also struggling. It's hard to put Charlie Sheen into one explanation, but if that was all it was, then we'll probably never be making this video. To Charlie Sheen, there was a big problem of feeling like the show wasn't his job, but it felt like some sort of empire. The show had to grow with what it had, so each episode employed more people, all with the goal of delivering more high-tier episodes to millions of people. The show couldn't stop because Charlie was going through divorces, drug abuse, and etc. The difficult thing about being on TV, especially something as big as 2.5 Men, is that nothing waits on you. Not the scripts you have to act out or the deadlines. Sets need to still get built and episodes still need to air. As Charlie's personal life became increasingly chaotic, it slowly started affecting production. Reports of missed rehearsals, late arrivals, arguments, forgetting lines, and a bunch of stuff. Delays started becoming more common. Not everything was confirmed though. But one thing was becoming harder to ignore was my guy was finding it hard to separate Charlie Harper from him, which became sad to see. So production had to stop. CBS had to cancel the rest of season 8, which caused a lot of people in the show to lose their job, the crew to be exact. Charlie tried to play hero and offered to pay 30% of the salary if CBS didn't step up, but with whatever that was going on with Charlie, it became harder to keep that promise. Yes, and Chuck Lorre came to offer financial relief and compensation to the crew. Production had to stop because of one man, and not just any man, but their lead. There was a sequence of events that led to Charlie Sheen eventually getting fired. January 2011, the catalyst. During his wild party at his house, Charlie had to be sent to the hospital due to a medical emergency, which was a severe, painful hiatal hernia. A long-term hernia condition that aggravated by laughing too hard or an intense reflux. This caused the production to go on a temporary hiatus so Charlie could enter a home rehab program. February 2011, the war begins. When all that was happening with the hiatus, Charlie felt like he was ready to come back to work, but the studio decided to still keep the doors closed. which made Charlie furious to the point he called into the Alex Jones show and TMZ for an interview.
I have a disease, bullshit. I cured it with my brain, with my mind. I'm cured. I'm done. The only thing I'm addicted to right now is winning.
He wasn't only doing rant interviews, but declaring war. Interview per interview, he wasn't holding anything back. Chuck Lorre became the biggest target. He publicly went all out on Chuck, calling him a clown, a maggot, and a stupid little man. Everyone was seeing the dark side of the show, Charlie's side, whether on TV, radio, or across the internet. By late February, CBS had to cancel the rest of Season 8, triggering Charlie's legendary media tour. Eventually, CBS had to make a decision, not between the fighters, but if they should just scrap the show or one of their biggest stars. They chose the show. When Warner Bros. Fired Charlie, they sent an 11-page termination notice to Charlie's legal team, in which they didn't hold anything back. The letter explained the dark story of Sheen's actions behind the scenes. They wrote, and I quote, "At the outset, let us state the obvious. Your client has been engaged in dangerously self-destructive conduct and appears to be very ill. His declining condition undermined the production in numerous and significant ways. The result has been a series of well-chronicled and increasingly erratic outbursts." It was their way of saying, your client, Mr. Sheen, did more damage than people think. They proceeded by accusing Sheen of felony offenses, including the furnishing of cocaine to others. But if you think they'll stop there, you'll be wrong, because I dug up some more. The Association Press texted Charlie asking him if he was going to sue. He replied with big. He texted reporters who were covering the story as trolls and yellow cockroaches. But before that, he sent a statement to TMZ, and again, I quote, "This is very good news. It is a big day of gladness at the Sober Valley Lodge, because now I can take all the Brazilians, never have to look at again, and I never have to put on those silly shirts for as long as this warlock exists in this terrestrial dimension." Yeesh. Yes, there were more problems to look into, but CBS had a problem because firing Charlie solved one problem and created another. Because now the question was, how do you replace the face of one of television's biggest sitcoms? Did they repeat what Charlie Sheen did on Spin City and find a better replacement? People had to know. Charlie Harper wasn't just the MC, but he was the identity of the show. Everything in the show mostly revolved around Charlie Harper. Replacing Sheen was like getting rid of something people tuned in to see every week. I'm sure you also find it hard to think about what would happen at the show at that time. The show had to find a replacement or just end the show completely. There were rumors, different actors were considered, but the actors they considered rejected the proposals. One notable one was the British actor Hugh Grant, who actually was reportedly the first main choice, and he made up with Chuck Lorre. Loved the pitch, but contemporary reporting also says he backed down last second, partly over the demands of a 24-episode TV schedule. He later admitted that he found it hard to commit to an American sitcom without seeing a finished script. Other actors considered were John Stamos and Rob Lowe until they landed on Ashton Kutcher. Because of his experience with sitcoms like The 70s Show, it was easier to easily land on him. His deal was around $700,000 per episode. Chuck Lorre knew he couldn't risk hiring a different Charlie version that wouldn't have sat well with fans, so they had to create their own version of the script. The season 9 premiere began with Charlie Harper's funeral, revealing he had been struck by a subway train in Paris, which didn't sit well with most fans because of how Charlie was written off. A death that confused and troubled a lot of fans because of how insulting it was to one of the beloved characters. Some fans also noted that characters like Alan, Evelyn, and Berta barely shed a tear, moving on to jokes about inheriting the beach house and selling the estate within minutes. What I mean is, fans felt everything about that was a low blow, including the death. Proceeding to getting a first look at their new lead, Walden, a childlike, heartbroken internet billionaire who tried drowning himself in the Malibu Ocean before wandering into Alan's life. He then buys Charlie's house and lets Alan stay. The fans got their new lead, but audiences found it hard fully accepting Ashton's character Walden because they didn't see him as Charlie, even though he was coming in as a new character than a direct recast. Almost like they had to start over again and start caring for this new character and I guess their arcs. Which sucked for him because it didn't matter how much he was talented, he wasn't going up against himself but against replacing a beloved character. Instead of being a cynical, smooth-talking womanizer, dude was a naive, emotionally sensitive, and deeply vulnerable. Basically a complete opposite of Charlie. And I'll just speed past the reasons why audiences didn't embrace Walden. Number 1. The show was written with Charlie Sheen in mind, hence the blurring line thing. 2. Walden being what Ellen was for the first seasons, being an emotionally insecure divorcee who won't forget his ex-wife, meant Ellen had to grow up and become his babysitter and surrogate husband. With Charlie, even though he had lots of money, it was always not a guarantee he would have that money for long. But with Walden being a billionaire with endless money removed the high stakes, he basically buys Charlie's house there and there. The dangerous urge was gone. And I also noticed something when I went back to watch the 2 versions of the show. For 8 seasons, the opening theme had Charlie Sheen, John Cryer, and Angus C. Jones sing the song, with audiences getting used to that. But because Ashton was a new lead, they had a new intro. So I noticed that in the new version, Ashton isn't in Charlie's place singing his line, but in Jake's. Sort of like the writers were saying, we ain't replacing Charlie, but trying to find Walden's own position in the show, you know? It's a tiny detail, one that most people never noticed. Chuck Lorre must have sat down with Lee Aronson and thought, no more bad things will happen, right? Right? According to reports, in 2012, Angus C. Jones, still starring in Season 10, did a testimonial interview with an independent Christian ministry called The Forerunner Chronicles. Sitting in front of a camera, he dropped a bomb that went viral globally overnight.
Please stop watching 2.5 Men. I'm on 2.5 Men. I don't want to be on it. Please stop watching it. Please stop filling your head with filth. Please. It's you know, people say it's just entertainment.
He had found religion and wished not to have the show as his past. And Charlie saying that had to weigh in with a statement to People magazine. With Angus's meltdown, it is radically clear to me that the show is cursed. That must have been gold for Charlie, because in his head, that might prove his points in his rants. But Angus immediately apologized to Chuck, the crew, and the cast about his disrespect, and that he saw the cast and crew as his extended family. But they still wrote him off the show by sending him to military camp in Japan. But since he apologized and didn't make it a big deal like Charlie, the show felt empty as the later seasons went on. Ashton tried to make people forget Charlie, but it was clear that audiences, even the show, missed Charlie. He didn't kill the show, he was already dying, and I think the writers knew Walden wouldn't save it. The finale didn't end how most people would have wanted. From breaking the fourth wall gags to dry jokes, there was no way but to end the show. To some people, the show died when Charlie left, but it kept going on for 4 more seasons, so it just made the ending feel strange. But apparently Chuck wanted Charlie Sheen back for the finale. According to reports, there were discussions, but they fell through. So after 12 seasons, it was over. Or else it should have ended with closure after all the years.
Winning.
Final thoughts? Looking back at the Big Bang Theory and the way the show managed to reach its ending, it makes the story of 2.5 Men feel even sadder. Because no one really won. Even though Chuck Lorre went on to create more successful shows, it still lost the show he really loved. Charlie Sheen remained a massive name, but lost a character that had become inseparable from his own identity. Ashton inherited a role that was almost impossible to win. And the show itself kept going, but it never recovered the identity it had before. I watched Charlie's acting in his last season and it made sense. Almost like he wasn't acting, but just being him. But there were grudges going on as it went on. The show just didn't know what to do with the Charlie, even trying to bring a female version of him, his daughter, to fill that void. I don't know, man. None killed the show, but tiny fractures that became impossible to fix later on. I don't know. I guess the saddest thing is not watching a show end, but it becoming what it shouldn't have been.